Welcome, dear listeners, to the Speak and Flow podcast, where we share experiences, leadership strategies to help you and your team unleash the power of their voice, achieve maximum flow and potential. Today, I have Laurice Gonzales. Hi, Laurice.
Hi, Melinda.
I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
There's
There you go. As I predicted, I'm sorry about that.
no, okay. Her dog knows when she's on an important call. So obviously, like, he wants to say hi too. Hi,
It
Pig.
always happens. It always happens. He
It's so
knows
fun.
when I'm on an important call and he takes that as a cue to
Oh
just
my
chime
goodness.
in.
Very cute. Very cute. Well, welcome. Welcome. Laurice is a part of the San Francisco Public Works. So she's a project manager there. And so I am so thrilled to have you come speak to us about the communication tips, strategies from the public side, and you also were at the private side. And so it's going to be a fascinating conversation. I'm so glad you're here. So can you tell the audience a little bit more right now about what you do in the public sector?
Right. So currently, well, thank you for an introduction, Melinda. Currently, I'm project managing what we call the employee experience survey, and then the process improvement side within San Francisco Public Works. So what that is, we'll look into the overall experience of our staff within the department, their level of engagement, and how do we make sure that they're having a good experience working with San Francisco Public Works. And prior to my current role, I did work in private. Um, I worked at Yelp. It's more on the data side of things. So data management. I was with the data management team in there. Um, that was a whole interesting side too because I was with an international operations group.
Okay.
So we do have folks from different countries, born and raised in different countries, and then we formed this one group where we basically look into the international operations of Yelp.
Wow. And so what do you see are the differences between the public and the private sector with regard to communication?
Yeah, that's very interesting because when I was working in private tech, it was a whole different environment. It was all like, we'll have all that. I don't know, maybe you or the audience have heard about where we have like free snacks and like some games within the
Yeah.
floor and all the happy things, right? It was really good. It was good for you know, keeping employees engaged, keeping them happy when they're in the workplace.
Right.
But I just feel like it's kind of different in terms of communication because now with government, of course, we
Mhm.
don't have that. We don't have all the freebie meals and all those foosball tables within
Right.
the lunch floor or things like that.
And I'm even
Um,
surprised that you're doing this employee engagement.
yeah,
The fact that you guys are doing employee engagement. I mean, you don't have all the foosball and the snacks, but at least you're doing that, the employee engagement.
right.
But what you're saying is that the private sector, there's a lot more bells and whistles to help keep people build community communication, whereas the public sector is not so much.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So like when I was in private tech, it was kind of like it was given. We
Mhm.
have the venue for that, all the happy hours and, like it was kind of built in to
Mhm.
how we do our daily work.
Yeah.
And I love that you highlighted that, now in government, we don't have all those things, all those fun stuff, but we do take the effort to still make sure that there are ways to keep staff engaged. There are ways to keep them happy in the workplace. And what I've come to realize in the past years in doing this work, um, it's not about the foosball tables or the
Mhm.
Xbox or it's
Really?
not about that.
Oh,
And it's not always about the free snack. There are actual things that would make people happy within the workplace. that those other things would not solve.
Mm,
So like in the work that I do now, what I realize is um, one thing that impacts people the most is the kind of relationship they have with their supervisors.
mm,
So maybe you're not always like treating them out for lunches or all these things, but the way supervisors and the staff interact is a
yeah.
big factor in building a culture or building this workplace where everyone is happy and they don't just clock in and clock out. And I guess it also plays into people having more, I guess they're more personally invested in what the department achieves.
Mm, mm,
So, um, it starts with the supervisors because they're the ones who regularly talk to the staff.
mhm.
So the kind of relationship that you guys, the supervisor and the staff have plays a big part in the culture that, we're trying to form. And I'm lucky because in public works, we do have supervisors who really care about the people in their team.
Yeah.
They would try to look for ways on how to make the workplace better.
Mm,
And the challenge is that with government, there's a lot of regulations that we need to
yeah.
adhere to. So
Right.
we cannot get crazy creative with
Right.
how we handle things. So there are regulations that we need to follow.
Or
But
like
it's
streamlining, even just
yeah,
streamlining is
mhm,
hard.
yeah,
We want to help the team, but even regulations around streamlining can be tough to break. So I want to go
yeah.
back to what you're saying about the manager and the relationship. Are you finding getting information about what a manager can do to really bridge the gap or build a relationship, a strong relationship with every employee? Like what are a couple of strategies or tips that you can share as an
Yeah. So, well, the work that I do now, we do an employee survey department wide. So that's really, we have an executive team who's really invested and really want to know what's going on, department wide. So they
uh-huh.
do want to take the time to ask people how they're feeling about things. And of course, you know, um, they would we would gather that information
Okay.
and just like look into how like managers can work on things like streamlining daily processes. So public works, we do a whole lot of different things, right? Like we have a division that's dedicated to design and construction, and we have people who are dedicated to operations who
Uh-huh.
like the daily schedule of those people are very different. So managers would try to streamline things like efforts that they're trying to do.
Got it. Like not
And
having so many silos between
yeah,
things. Yeah.
yeah. And I like using this as an example. It's like things like when we onboard new people, when we hire new people, are they onboarded properly? So are they set up for success? Do they know the role that
Mm-hmm.
they would be doing? Do they have the people that they can turn to when when they have questions. So it's things like working on proper onboarding. It's things like looking into career pathing and
Right.
trying to really understand like what's people's plans for their careers.
Right. Right.
And again, we're part of the whole civil service process. Um, but I think showing to staff that you care goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not always easy conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but having the conversation makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah.
Because it could be just, there's awareness, right? Like after you see the survey results, like there's awareness of what's needed.
Right.
But to just stop there at getting the results and not really having conversations on what to do with the results or the feedback is like, it kind of affects the morale of people. So for us, say, again, just very lucky to be in a department where um, executive team doesn't just stop at, okay, we know the feedback.
Mhm.
They actually would want to take it to the next step where it's like, what do we do about the feedback?
Mhm.
And admittedly, communications and culture change is not something that happen or like change overnight.
Mm.
But I think to try and inch our way towards making those improvement is what
Yes,
what
yes,
matters really. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. That's so insightful. I love that. Even though yes, it's just it takes a while, but I think that what you're saying and what I hear is that when the manager really shows that we care and you care, and just demonstrating that you care and you're listening and
Yeah.
having honest conversations about what little things that we could do to move the mark, then I think that will go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what
Yeah.
about that compared to the private sector? Did you see something different at the private sector?
Yeah. Well, I'm speaking from my experience.
Right, right.
I just I find it very interesting that when I was in private, the whole like we're happy here at work is kind of the whole vibe, right?
Yeah.
But it felt more to me like it was very top-down approach. Do you know
Mm,
what I mean? So like we get information from the heads, the upper tier positions,
right.
and then we're just like, okay, this is going to be the company values. Okay, this is going to be what we're working on. But then it also felt like, where did this come from?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
It just felt like maybe it wasn't more about asking from the frontline staff or the people who are hands-on with the operations and how we're going to go about with the change,
Yeah.
as opposed
Did you
to,
feel a lot of change going on at the time?
yeah, there was a lot
Yeah,
of
a lot
changes
of
going
change.
on, but
Yeah,
also
yeah,
like it also felt like, well, at least for me, like I can't even catch up.
yeah.
Like there was like this
That's
one that
so
was like
fascinating.
yeah, it's
It's
just like
so
so
fascinating
fast
because it's so
paced.
true. Because it's like tech, you're fast going, and then you're on the
Yeah.
flip side, everything's like so slow.
Yeah.
That is interesting. That is so true. And then so to feel like, and that's why it's always top down, because
Yeah.
there's no time to get feedback, and this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah. It's
I just
always just
think
like that.
that,
And it's like,
yeah,
oh man. So, it's almost like you're just witnessing it without really taking part in it.
mm,
And you're right. Like, I think I needed to make that adjustment when I moved from private to government.
yeah,
It's like that pace was so different. And then I
so,
moved to government and it was like, um, things change doesn't happen just as fast as that, like in
mm,
private. But now with public works, it just feels like we are more focused on like really listening to people,
wow,
taking time and like, what do you guys really think?
mm,
Versus just like a very top-down approach where did this come from? You know? And
yeah,
sometimes it's not a bad thing to pause
yeah,
and assess and really try to take a look at what are the changes that we need to do. And
yeah,
so that's where I'm coming from when I say like there's very big difference when it comes to how communications happen with
yes,
private and then with government. And
yes.
um yeah.
What was the impact? So you said when there was a top-down approach, you felt like, tell me more about the impact to you and to the team. Do you recall at that time when you felt like everything was constantly changing? You mentioned you felt like you were just watching.
Mhm.
Tell me more. Like what? Yeah.
I think what I was kind of feeling back then was like I was a little bit more detached.
Nice.
It felt like, okay, I don't have a say on these things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The directives are just gonna, like they'll just share it with me.
Right.
I guess it kind of felt like you didn't really have a voice.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, I'm not saying that it's a horrible thing. I'm just saying it's designed very differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it just felt like, again, you're just watching, like you're just seeing it unfold,
Interesting.
but you're not proactively being a part of it.
Yeah.
And you like it's like you're not part of the change. You're just seeing it happen.
Yeah. And having it happen to you
Yeah,
versus being a part of it and having
right.
almost like there's no, and you're not like engaged, right? I'm not a part of it and I'm not, so then you're like disconnected.
Yeah. And I mean,
Wow.
the plus side of it is change is still happening, improvements are still happening.
Right.
But I'm just not personally invested. Like I guess I just struggled trying to find a connection to it.
Thank you. That's so powerful. Because I've never been, I hear what it feels like to be in the public works sector. And I hear that, it's so slow, it takes a lot of time, but I'm really happy to hear that if there are people, there are managers in the public and the government sector that care and are trying to
Yeah.
affect change and really listening to the people. And I think that because like you said, there's space and things are not moving so fast that we have time to reflect and
Yeah.
also learn and listen to people and bring people together versus in the private sector where things are happening so fast. I think there's just so much competition and it's just moving and we don't, as a part of the team, we don't feel like we have a say because
Yeah.
yeah, and then therefore the impact is you get disconnected. We don't know what do you think that the private sector can do in this situation?
Um, well, I'll take it from like my experience now with the government sector,
Yeah.
where, I'm saying that kind of taking it a little slower is not exactly a
Um,
bad thing because then you have that venue and the time and the space to actually have conversations, to
yeah.
actually ask people how they feel about things. How do you feel about the workplace? What is it that we can do, whether it's small or big, to try and keep improving, right? And I think it's just a level of engagement. And I think it's just the environment is designed different. Um, I think, for I guess it's how you approach, I guess how you communicate department wide. If it's just an email or a memo, it goes out and then it's like you're not even asking for feedback,
Mhm, mhm,
then I guess that's when people start feeling disconnected, right?
mhm, mhm,
But maybe if you have other venues where actual connection can be made,
mhm,
then
mhm.
maybe that'll set the tone a little differently. And maybe there's a bit more understanding.
Yes.
Yeah, because I guess and I want to share too the reason why like in public works now, um we do want to take the time to really connect with employees and ask them what will keep them engaged in the workplace is because the main drive is always to provide better service,
Mhm,
and that is to provide better service to the city.
mhm.
And how do you do that? It's you try to keep trying to be better.
Right.
And where do you start? Of course, with the people who's actually doing the work, so we can serve the city better.
Mhm,
So taking care of the people
mm.
is key in the department being able to give better service.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like
Oh,
that
I love
connection,
that.
right?
Right, right. There's a connection to the bigger vision. Like, what is our purpose?
Yeah,
Like, it's not easy. There's challenges, but at the same time, and there's a deep level of connection, my purpose here. I have a role in supporting the city and supporting the, bettering the services to the city. And so there is like so much, like there's a purpose and a vision that you're all going toward.
Yeah.
And
I love that you mentioned about the purpose and the vision.
yeah.
Because one of the things too is, when we did the survey, one of the areas that we look into is how much people value their contribution to the work that we do, which is to serve the public and to serve the city and to provide the services that, we need to give them, right? And so it's good to know like what they think about that. And it's good
Right.
to know that people don't just go to work to clock in, clock out.
Yeah.
They actually care that are we really doing the service that we promised?
Right.
And so it's not just about them working in their own individual worlds, but trying to see their contributions within the team and how the team contributes to the department-wide goals and the department's goals to provide the services that we provide to San Francisco. It's kind of like this when you try to do like a root cause analysis of issues, right? And you start from the actual people who do the work. And that's why it's so valuable to seek their feedback, listen, and really try to do something about it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Laurice. That's so powerful. It's such an important point about really listening and helping people to feel like there's purpose in what they do.
Yeah. So it's funny, like people say, oh, it's slow in government. It's a whole lot of like bureaucratic process.
Right.
I think that's the general perception about it.
Yes.
But it's good to see the reasoning behind it, like what's really going on.
Yeah.
It's not just like that general impression of like things are not moving. It's because no, it's actually moving, and it's just things are unfolding and happening at a pace where it's digestible by everyone.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's great. That's great to know. Well, thank you. Laurice, I'd like to ask you, like I ask all of my podcast guests, what is the one leadership takeaway, golden takeaway that you like the audience to remember?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Have the conversation. It might be because I guess from my experience, you shy away from difficult conversations because, sometimes you don't have enough courage for it, right? But have that conversation. It goes a long way. And some difficult conversations, the longer you sit on it and like try to postpone it, the more difficult it becomes.
Yes.
Just have a calm venue, approach it calmly, have that conversation, just be open about it. I think it helps not just your personal level of anxiety, but to make that connection and really listen to others. I think that's a major key.
Yes, get it out of the way, have the conversation, step into courage and connection, and you might find some really positive possibilities on the other side.
Absolutely.
Wonderful, Laurice. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your experience. I learned a lot, and I trust that our audience also learned a lot. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. And
thanks, Melinda.
Thank you, audience, for being here. Until next time, until I see you, I'm your sister in flow. May prosperity flow to you and through you. I'll see you on the other side. Thank you. See you. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining the conversation today. Are you curious on how you measure up with your ability to speak in flow? Come grab my free self-assessment at https://speakinflow.com/assessment. And I'll see you on the other side.